The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
I thank the Speaker, and I thank the Speaker for his yielding, and I thank my colleagues for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak this afternoon from the heart. Democrats have done great things. We've certainly appreciated the members of the other side of the aisle who have joined us on some of those. Those things include passing a very effective CHIPS bill that I hope to bring thousands of jobs to my congressional district through the production and manufacturing using precious metals, in particular coming from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We now have families who suffer from diabetes who shockingly, for the first time in their life, can have insulin capped at $35. I'm glad to have been a part of it. I seek, as I did before, that Medicaid recipients can also have their insulin capped. I'm glad that working families in this storm of inflation can, through the Biden administration and Congress, have subsidies for health care and get cheaper health care. And I'm glad that the flooding that is so intensive in places like Houston can, in fact, now have the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and isolated communities without transportation or transit can, in fact, now have the potential of billions of dollars coming to those rural and urban centers, inner city centers that need an infrastructure rebuild. We need clean water, and Flint and Jackson, Mississippi should not be the norm in the United States of America, and lead in pipes that help destroy the cognitive genius of our children should not exist. We've done great things. And as we go to work in our districts, listen to our constituents even more than we do when we have a moment over the weekends that we go home. We go home to hold in our hands the destiny of democracy when we fight for re-election for the purpose of ensuring the value of this nation. As I look, in God we trust. We've done great things. The families of America should know that this leadership under Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn and the chair, Mr. Jeffries, and the vice chair of the Democratic caucus, we should all know that there have been good things that are done. So when I go home, I have no hesitancy to be able to go and to champion the lives we have saved, the veterans who get answers to their questions and their health conditions, the people who suffered under the burn pit, now relief. They celebrated because of this Congress, this Democratic Congress, with our friends who wanted to do what is right. We have given hope to those burn pit victims. They can't breathe. And we've finally given relief. This body has determined that the electoral count should be accurate with no false electors showing up giving false representation that they represent the states. No vice president can do anything but ministerial. There'll be no doubt that if you vote in a presidential election, fairly and electors are selected to cast their vote for you, something, of course, that I think is a figment of our past and should not be in place, but let's make it perfect. You can now trust that the electors will do right as they did in 2020, and they provided the final vote under the vice presidency of Mr. Pence that elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We pray to God that we will never see January 6th again. Never again. Never the violence, the brutality, the bloodshed of our police officers, the deaths that occurred, the innocent lives lost. We hope never again. We've done some good things. There's such a litany of them, I cannot list them all. I'm delighted to have passed the human trafficking, Stop Human Trafficking in School Zones, the legislation that I authored, that we have fixed the Terry fix to ensure justice for those who were not able to come appropriately under the reduction of sentencing dealing with crack and cocaine. I'm glad to have been able to push the Violence Victims of Crime Act to ensure a better handling of victims of crime. But at the same time, Speaker, the House is not in order, but it's off the floor, but it is certainly pretty loud. I believe that it is important to assure that the American people know that we are, in fact, working hard for them. And so the many amendments to help HBCUs that I've offered, the many important elements of the appropriations, including more dollars for post-traumatic stress under the NDAA and some aspects of the appropriations that I do every year, the helping of those suffering from triple-negative breast cancer, and working to ensure that the lives of our children are better by helping to create resources for safer schools, work still unfinished to get our storage laws in place, to ban assault weapons, but we have done a great thing in passing legislation to break the cycle of violence led by Mr. Horsford, and to utilize the tools that have been given through this Congress under Democratic leadership to make lives better for all Americans. We've done some good things. As we've done some good things, there's more work to be done. I want to make sure that we see the passage of the voting rights so that oppression of voting can cease and desist. It is appalling that we go into this election, but we fought as Democrats to make it happen. I'm so sorry the no's came from the other side of the aisle. And I want to thank my colleagues, 217 plus, who have, in fact, supported the idea of a commission to study slavery and to look seriously and thoroughly at the question of reparation proposals. I know that we will work together going forward. It is the heart of America to cure both racism and to heal and to bring people together. I have confidence. I feel well about our opportunities. I want to thank the speaker that's in the chair to have joined me in the midst of the crisis of reproductive freedom being taken away to support medical personnel who right now, under the laws of the Dodd case in America, are being arrested, could be nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors who are simply trying to help a desperate woman been raped or a child who's been raped. I hope to pass that Protecting the Medical Personnel of America bill. I hope to pass the legislation that I introduced to stop the stalkers who would get a bounty on women by watching what they do, calling up and saying, I think she's getting an abortion, she's over at this address, and receiving $10,000. Can you believe it? The law of the land in the state of Texas. We have done some good things, and we're doing good things. But if this special order is about one issue or item, this is what I want it to be about. I want it to be about something that our psychic is just not used to. I don't know how many times we've thought of the tens upon tens of Americans that are held hostage around the world. We learned a little bit about MIAs, people missing in action, soldiers missing in action, really through the Vietnam War. I know they were missing in action in World War II and other wars, but in this recent generation, we learned about it because the late heroic John McCain would always remind us of the MIAs. I joined with my colleague Ben Reyes and put a flag out in front of the City Hall in Houston, Texas, when I was a member of the City Council, the first MIA flag, I believe, maybe in city councils across America. I came here to the United States Congress, and outside my door is the flag of MIAs. We understand that. But do we understand about Americans who have done little and been plucked off the streets of places that are despotic and joined the thousands of their own citizens thrown in jail with no real justice system? So if I come to you today, I want the title of this special order to focus us on where we need to go. And when I mention Brittany Griner, I want everybody to know I'm thinking of Paul Whelan, and I'm thinking of the journalists in Iran and hostages around the world, U.S. citizens. Does anybody know that we work hard on this? When I say we, the administration works hard on this every day. On the floor today, I asked for more resources for the hostage finding team. I'll just call them that. But I want to take a moment to show you Brittany Griner's life. She's a Houstonian. Went to the schools, the public schools in the area. Went to Nimitz High School in my congressional district. I met some of her classmates. Even the students there today want to do something to show their care and outrage about where she is today. Brittany Griner. No, she was not in the United States military. I honor them. But she wore the uniform. She was an Olympian. Brought a gold medal home to the United States, I believe, 2 Olympians back to back. That's USA, number 42, number 15, and number worn in the Olympics. That's Brittany Griner sharing some good news, a good dunk maybe, with her teammates. Brittany Griner, an Olympian, wearing that good-looking gold medal. We like that because everybody watches the Olympics. What a unbelievable basketball player. That's a shot. I could almost dream about that shot. Brittany Griner, an American, African-American young woman. I know the Baylorites love the championships and the hard playing that she did for them. Baylor University. That's Brittany Griner. Had a life in front of her because of the very poor compensation of sorts compared to the NBA. Many women WNBA players go off to foreign countries to play. She got drafted by Phoenix and played stupendously. So many world records in basketball as a professional. Big heart. Brittany Griner. Teammates loved her. I visited the Phoenix arena where the Phoenix, her team, plays. And of course, Brittany Griner's locker was there waiting for her to come back. This looks like an exciting time. Some good-looking pictures of our fellow American. And Paul Whelan, a Marine, had some good days serving his country. It's just an innocent civilian who the infractions of what she is charged with wound up suggesting and threatening and charging her as a drug trafficker, a big-time drug trafficker. No sense, but nonsense. Could have been released and directed back to the United States. But no, this is what Mr. Putin wanted to do. He felt that after the Olympics of 2022, the Winter Olympics, where his teams were embarrassed because of drugs, that he would show the United States. Here she is. They put you in a cage, 6'9" in a cage. The beauty of her size was to recognize such a talented person, playing the sport, doing well, giving joy to the fans, and getting Americans to cheer on during the Olympics. 6'9". This is what they wanted to show Americans. We got you now, in your eye. A young woman who longs to be home, deserves to be home, with other hostages who have been brutally treated. President Biden has indicated as commander-in-chief that he wants all of the hostages home and that he is ready to speak to Mr. Putin if he'd only have a heart. If he'd only recognize that there is no justice in his injustice. 99% of those who go to trial in Russia are convicted, are in fact held hostage. This is a direct result of Putin's interests in saying to the United States, I guess, we got you. Not respecting she has family, not respecting that she has done nothing wrong. Brittany is an extension of us in Houston. She represents the quintessential American stories and qualities. She is suffering after going through a trial, process of appeal, doing everything, offering doctor's statements as to why certain items were with her, indicating a mistake, doing everything, told by her lawyers, nothing. The denial of basic rights from Brittany Griner offends all Americans because they are the rights to which we believe all people are entitled. A trial by a jury of your peers and the right to be able to be proven innocent. We do not accept the dehumanization that is commonplace in Russia, and our values compel us to seek justice for Brittany's immediate release and return to her family and friends. She can't speak for herself. She spoke eloquently by saying, "I'm sorry. It was a mistake." It seemed to have fallen on deaf ears. Can it be nothing more than an attempt to humiliate her, her family, her loved ones who cry out for the potential of what may happen? She cried out to the President of the United States, "I fear that I may be here for the rest of my life." A young woman who gives away shoes and items to children without her basic rights. Her basic rights. So we as Americans can just not go quietly. We've got a lot on our plate. But the only lifeline they have is the United States of America. As a mother who's watched my children grow up, proud to see them excel, I can only imagine the gut-wrenching pain of her mother and father and her wife. How hopeless they feel. There is no worse feeling than when someone in your family is in imminent danger and they are beyond your reach to help. As a black woman, I can say there's no greater fear through the history of our time, through slavery, through discrimination, through unequal treatment that we face in the justice system, even here. To think that there is nothing we can grab at to be able to give the defense, the explanation. But I just want Americans to think of the pain of losing their children to something that is so foreign to us. They are alive, but they're held hostage. There's much pain in this country. I've seen it through gun violence, and so I don't speak to the pain of those mothers and fathers. What I speak to is that we need to do something about it. I've gone to the Russian consulate in Houston. I've gone to the Russian embassy. I've looked the ambassador in the eye, huge, gigantic complex, and I said, send this message to Mr. Putin. Let Brittany go. Let Paul Whelan go. And let the people of Russia, the good people who are out fighting against this vile and vicious war against Ukraine, let them go too. But I can't leave silently to go back to Houston without coming to this floor and saying since February, about 2 weeks after the Olympics, she has been held. She's not a soldier. She had nothing to do with any government activities. And the only reason I say that is because her training does not lend herself in these dastardly conditions. A cage, inhumane cage, ultimately to go to a labor camp where Trevor Reed suffered, Paul Whelan has suffered. She had been denied access to consular officials, and she was dependent upon Russian lawyers who mean well but simply go into the court and watch their client be convicted. As they faked elections just the last couple of days, Brittany Griner is suffering from Putin's demonstration of power and control that stems from centuries of bigotry and hatred and embodied in an autocratic leader who is the very antithesis of everything Ms. Griner represents. If you want to know why she's incarcerated and not released, because it is based upon her country of origin, something she cannot help. Americans who are blessed to be born under this flag cannot help the values upon which we stand. We cannot help our pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. We cannot help our national anthem that calls for victory, the Star-Spangled Banner. We cannot help that we're called by nations to defend them. We cannot help that we have the freedom to travel and that we welcome people to this country, Russian students, Russian players, even on the space station. That's America. But now we find the dastardly acts of stealing land, calling it election, fighting people who want to be free, Ukrainians. And in the midst of this turmoil, a young woman graduating in my district from Nimitz High School, a Bella University graduate, two-time Olympian, and of course, all her friends in Phoenix, and just a basic human being. Now, I hope I made it clear. There are two teams in Phoenix. She's with the Phoenix Mercury, the WNBA team. I couldn't leave this day without reminding America that if in God we trust, give some hope to these people, lonely all over the world, shocked that they were snatched off the streets or snatched from an airport, gave every explanation, created no outrageous, vile, terroristic act, did nothing with guns, drugs of any amount, was no detriment to anybody in that land, and here they are. So my colleagues, Congressman Stanton and Allred, supported H.Res. 1132, led by Congressman Stanton out of Phoenix, calling for the immediate release of Brittany Griner. And I will submit this into the record. And I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
And unanimous consent for this press statement. Ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
And an article written most recently about Brittany Griner's conditions that she is facing and what she thinks is going to happen to her life. I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
And so, Mr. Speaker, let me express my appreciation to my colleagues. I hope they see the pain that her family is feeling. None of us can stand in their shoes. Because none of us can stand in their shoes, we have to plead with Vladimir Putin to let our important and crucial leaders listen to this plea. Listen to our anguish. Listen and see this picture versus the ones that I've shown. This picture, just look at them. The Olympian to a cage. The Olympian to a cage. I'm going to do everything I can. I've asked the embassy, and I want to know what kind of shame they're experiencing, not giving Americans visas for us to go to our embassy in Moscow. What are they thinking? They can live in the world like this, locking people up so they can play got you and be inhumane and stick it in the eye of the American people? Well, I will tell you, as I stand here today, let me take this fist, to make the promise that all of our hostages should be free. I hope the State Department team of hostages gets additional funding to grow the team, unfortunately. But to the families of hostages who are in pain, some who don't know whether their loved one is alive, and they live with the pain every day that they've not been able to honor them if they're not. Mr. Speaker, thank my colleagues for the time, and I hope that I've said something to ignite the conscience of the American people and to ignite the conscience, if you will, of all of my colleagues. Free Brittany Griner now. Free Paul Whelan. Free Brittany Griner now. Mr. Speaker, I now yield back.